Come in. Take a seat at my table. Don't mind the regulars. Their language may be coarse at times, and their opinions, which are entirely their own, may often be misguided or downright idiotic, but they mean well. Help yourself to some shine and enjoy your stay.
Good evening. My name is Arran, and this evening I am drinking some Hobgoblin.
Hi, my name is Luke, and I'm drinking Brewdog Hazy Jane, which I probably shouldn't be because apparently there's been bullying at Brewdog. So
down with Brewdog. See, I've chosen not to drink that. I'm James, and I'm drinking Beer Moretti, where there is no bullying, just Italians getting on and having fun.
But it is a shit beer.
Yeah, it's a shit beer. That's why it's in the fridge. I'm making space.
yeah, that's why there's no. They're too busy having fun and getting on. That's why there's no good beer there.
Fair enough.
Maybe you've got maybe like good beer comes out of bullying. Maybe that's.
I think it's cold climate equals good beer. It's a simple mix there.
I like Corona. That's warm climate beer.
That's shit beer.
I like it though.
My equation still stands true.
It's not really beer though, is it? It's like having a little summery drink with a memory of beer.
Yeah, it's like a beer alco pop for the summer.
A beerette.
Yeah.
So we came here to do more than just drinking, although drinking is probably a primary purpose for being here. We've been playing a lot of The Other Side lately. It's Wyrd's second game. And maybe to sort of get things rolling in this discussion, Luke, why do you play The Other Side, and what is it about the game for you?
For me, it's kind of like it scratches that itch of playing like a sort of larger scale game, but still using the weird system from Malifaux. I mean, it's different, but it's pretty much the same shtick. That's kind of what drew me to it.
So the first hook was close enough to Malifaux to get you interested.
Yeah, it's kind of it's set in the same world, which is a world that I love. The fluff all ties in with Malifaux. It uses cards the same as Malifaux. And yeah, Wyrd are just great at designing games. I mean, I've tried lots of other miniature games, but the Wyrd games are my favourite. So weirdly, though, they started it with a Kickstarter, and I didn't go in on the Kickstarter. I wanted to kind of wait and see what happens. I got into it later.
That's weird because I got in on the Kickstarter and then it sat in my storage room for ages without getting played. I just had all the stuff sitting there waiting. And it was only, sort of November-ish last year where you guys sort of say, hang on a moment, there's a big sale or discount on Wyrd stuff, on The Other Side stuff. Who's playing this? And suddenly everyone was like, yeah, maybe.
Oh, half price? Yeah, me. I'm playing.
There's a sale on. Marvellous.
And for you, James?
Pretty similar to Luke. I mean, I sort of asked myself those questions. Why do I play miniature games? I love the lore, and if that's something you like about Malifaux, then finding all those little links between Malifaux and The Other Side is great. Character crossovers, seeing what the characters do when they go across to Earth and how Malifaux's affected them. I loved that idea of it. And also to play a slightly bigger game, bigger than a skirmish, I suppose. By the time you chuck on a whole 2 commander army, as we might get into later, you've got a field full of toys to play with.
Yeah, you got that epic scale, loads of sort of minis without painting the millions of minis that you might be required for sort of Warhammer Fantasy style.
Yeah, for me, it's somewhere in between a skirmish and a full-sized like army game. I think it sits really nicely in between the two.
And that
It's kind of got that scope as well, where you can have a little bit more play with your imagination. You know, the Alpha Crawler is absolutely fucking huge, whereas, you know, the biggest model you get in Malifaux is like a Malosaurus carefully balancing on a 50 mil base.
you got the 80 mil and 120 mil bases sitting in TOS. So you got a much bigger scale to do some crazy stuff. So, the Alpha Crawler is a good one. You know, when you're looking at the board, you've got, you know, all these sort of squad-like pieces, and you've got this absolutely enormous Titan looming over the top. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think the Titans are the. Well, I mean, I have played it in like before COVID. I played it in gaming stores, and when you have the Titans and stuff on the table, it does just attract people to, like, anyone walking past just has to stop and see what's going on.
It's a really good point. You know, if you want to get people into the game, which obviously TRS being the sort of the unwanted stepchild at the moment, you know, I think that's going to be a good way once the world opens up. People are playing this and people seeing it being played and actually on the board. It is really impressive looking.
Yeah, I mean, because the art and the minis are fantastic. The sculpts are fantastic. A lot of people don't like the plastic they're made out of. I don't mind it, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't mind it as well. And I must say, I think Wyrd's probably been doing a bit of experimenting on this one. You know, if you look at all the Pandora box and, you know, all the autumn harvests and things that are coming along with the pre-made minis.
Yeah, I think from here on in, pre-mades are going to be they won't be the stuff that the original TOS stuff was. They're going to be more like the Rotten Harvest Pandora box, and I think all the starter boxes are
pre-made as well. Yeah,
that plastic. Because I got the Explorers one the other day, and that's the same as the Rotten Harvest one.
So when we talk TOS, we've got this game that is not quite a full army game. It's definitely more than a skirmish game. What else about it is dragging you in? Like, what's the hook or the, you know, distinctive mechanic or something that really is going to make you go, hang on, I want to try this game out?
It's the mechanics. It's familiar to Malifaux itself, so it's easy to get into, but it's cleaner, it's simpler. You know, you've got these 4 tokens pinned. My mind's gone. Inspired, shaken, and reinforcement. They all sort of cancel each other out. You know, so it's a much cleaner system.
Yeah,
you don't have to get bogged down in the rules as much, but it still has the intricacies of Malifaux that we know, so we can relate to sort of your stat flips and your card flips. So it's easy to get into, but without all the sort of bloat of rules that Malifaux sees.
That's definitely true, right? And you know, for anyone who's sort of played that sort of era between sort of 2nd edition and 3rd edition, you know, there's rules that you can see that were written before 3rd edition came into force, where, you know, was added into TOS and then suddenly it appeared in 3rd edition later. And there's a lot of other, you know, simple mechanics that just work. You know, for example, one thing I like about, you know, is there's a lot more choice available, a lot less restrictions. So, you know, in a lot of games we have a charge action. You know, you have to go in a straight line, right? In TOS, it's a rush order. You just move double your movement. There you go, right? There's a lot more player agency. Those restrictions are, you know, intentionally not put into the design of the game. So it seems to flow quite quickly when you get going.
Yeah, mechanically, yeah, I think you guys have covered it. I think I do want to mention another thing that attracted me to it was the plug bases.
Yep.
Just the way that works. I'm assuming like anyone who's listening to this can go and Google Other Side and they can see them. But for those who don't know, they're basically for the majority of the models, it would be an 80 mil base with 3 30 mil bases that slot into it. And I love the way it works. So everything only has 1 wound, but So say, oh god, I'm going to explain this really badly. I can almost feel the trash words coming out of my mouth. Yeah, well, like each miniature on the base represents a wound of that fire team. So when you take a wound, you just remove a miniature, and I really like that.
Yeah, it's simple and it's elegant. It
Yeah.
also gets reinforced with some other design elements of the game. So if you think about reinforcement, so James mentioned the tokens. So the reinforcement tokens are one of those tokens. So when those individual models are removed, they can come back, and it sort of goes back to that that same similar idea with James talking about your imagination, right? Like the army that's in front of you, or the company that's in front of you, is bigger than just the physical models there, and that sort of reinforcement represents them sort of the other units stepping forward and getting ready into position, right? So
Yeah, definitely. And if you have a bad flip and a model dies or a base dies, it's not all over. You've got more troops reinforcing. They come back in. The unit swells back in size. It's not all over because of one flip.
oh, absolutely. The number of times you get beaten down to what looks like a fairly awful position, and a turn or so later, suddenly things are looking a lot healthier again. And I've had a few games where actually, if you step back and reflect at the end of the time of the game over the 5 rounds, complete unit death isn't actually always that high. In some games it is, if you're playing against James, but in other games, not everything does. So
Yeah. And I mean, we'll get into the factions in more detail later, but there are certain mechanics that belong to certain factions that, for example, like the Gibbering Hordes, one of their main things is reinforcing, isn't it? And it gives the real feel of that endless numbers, the
They just
swarm.
keep coming back.
Yeah, the sort of Zerg tactic.
Oh, there's another mechanic that just sprung to my mind I really like. If you're losing a game of TOS, the game sort of shifts slightly to get you back in it. Something called stratagems, they become cheaper, and suddenly you're able to change the flow of the battle just a little bit to try and claw your way back in.
Yeah.
And maybe it's worth just exploring some of the concept of a stratagem, right? What I found when I first picked up the game, first looked at some of the units and some of the models, is that I was used to coming from Malifaux, where you'd have a master to have like multiple actions and bonus actions and all sorts of things that happen, and there's a lot less of that in TOS. So your commander will have more actions than other units on the field, but not drastically more, in most cases. And actually, the stratagems seem to sort of fill some of that void. It's sort of like an army-wide ability that can take place, and effectively, it's additional cards that you buy each turn that can have wide effects. Which could be bringing back units from the dead, or bringing back down fireballs from the sky, or other sort of more nuanced effects. But it adds a lot of flavor and uniqueness to each of the allegiances based on those stratagems. And as you say, being able to buy them cheaper if you're on the bad end of the fight is a good balancing mechanic.
The stratagems, you'll see more use out of them, and more of them being used more often in like 2 commander games, as opposed to 1 commander. Like 1 commander, because your commanders generate your tactics tokens, which is what you use to buy stuff. Use it to buy cards, you use it to buy stratagems. You can use them for reflips, etc. But when you're playing 1 commander, you obviously don't generate as much tactics tokens, so buying stratagems becomes less.
Yeah, it's a little you're a bit more resource constrained, right? So you don't have all the luxury of buying all the stratagems. So
Yeah.
and I think you've flagged it. Probably one of my favorite mechanics or design decisions was that of the the tactics tokens. And
Yeah.
that the sort of the core resource that you're working on in TOS. It's unlike your sort of soulstone tokens that soulstones that you guys from Malifaux will be familiar with, which is really just your excess pool that you didn't hire, right? In TOS, each turn your commanders generate tactics tokens, and as you say, you use those to buy everything. You don't get a starting hand in TOS, and at the beginning of every turn you do not draw more cards automatically. You buy them. You buy them with the tactics tokens, and if you want to buy a stratagem, you spend those same tactics tokens. And if you want to score on your strategy, use those same tactics tokens. So there's one sort of central core resource that you're working with. It's just a really good design piece.
Yeah, I think like managing the tactics tokens and knowing, like pre-planning out your turn, knowing how many you're going to get at certain times and what you're going to spend them on. It's really important, and I like that kind of that decision. It's teaching me sort of maybe temperance, is that the right word? Where usually I'm just like
Close enough.
just blow it all as soon as you can, but you can't do that in TOS. Like it just
because you run out and then you've got no cards next turn.
Yeah, and I've seen it like with me and loads of other players that I've played against, where you're kind of, you flip a bad card and you're like, oh, do you know what? I'm going to reflip that because you want it to happen. So you spend a tactics token, and then you go to claim an objective, and you run out, and you're like, oh shit.
I've definitely done that, and it also means your order of activation, right? The number of times I've done this to James at least twice, where I go to claim a stratagem, it's like, I was supposed to activate my commander first.
Yeah, I've done that. It might be worth mentioning as well, like the coordinated strike mechanic.
Yeah, because I think that plays into that, right?
Yeah. Which is
on Luke, you brought it up.
It's just it's kind of like, it's basically like Accomplice in Malifaux, isn't it? It's so TOS works like you go, I go, you go, I go, but you can do a coordinated strike, which means you can activate a second unit afterwards if you want. Now, if it goes from a commander to any other unit or any other unit to a commander, you can do that for free. If you want to do a squad to a squad, then it's going to cost you a tactics token. But it's really good. There's some tactics in that as well, like messing around with that to try and get the right activation order.
Yeah, and I think it's worth linking that with my most hated mechanic in Malifaux, which is the initiative flip. I cannot stand the initiative flip. The number of games I feel, maybe not truthfully, but I feel that I've lost the game on the initiative flip. It doesn't exist in TOS. There is no initiative flip. Whoever ended the turn last turn is not the first player next turn. So if you fully activated and then your opponent activates, you are definitely going first next turn. So then being able to choose when to coordinated strike, or knowing when your opponent could potentially coordinated strike, then plays into, well, do I want to go first next turn, and do I want to try ram some of my activations earlier into this turn and potentially give a scoring opportunity to end the turn to my opponent so that I can do something first next turn, or drag it out. It's a great
It's the big beauty of the game, isn't it? By cleaning the rules up compared to Malifaux, they've been able to add in these extra layers of strategy, whether it's stratagems, the management of your resources, the management of your activation order. Suddenly you can have all these extra bits of deeper strategy on top of the game.
Yeah, without having to add, a new piece with a new fancy, ability or effect. It's just global,
clean, simple mechanics
across the game. Yeah. So it's a really, and I think activation order in the game is incredibly important. It is in most games, right? But I think that knowing that you've got these definite decisions, like, yes, I end this turn, I'm not going first. How do I want to end my turn? Do I want to overexpose myself, knowing that I'm just going to grab this potential scoring opportunity now, but be open to a brutal retaliation next turn, or do I want to be a little bit softer And it's a known factor. It's not just, well, I'm going to take the risk and hope my opponent doesn't flip a 13 on initiative. So
And
I suppose overall, I'll go on, Luke.
No, I'm just saying we've all just been like fanboying like fuck for the last 20 minutes. So I was going to ask, like, is there anything you guys don't like in it?
Oh,
go for it.
I've got a couple of things that spring to mind. There are a couple of minor balance issues where the game has sort of fallen to the wayside a little bit, while sort of Wyrd have pushed Mallow 3rd Edition and Explorers. So I feel like it just needs a touch of balancing. Most of it is spot on. There's just a couple of abilities and stratagems that can seem a bit OP. Everything else is actually really good.
I think that's just because it has not really had much attention. They did do an errata and dealt with a few of the things that people were moaning about, and that cleaned up a lot of the problems. But yeah, you're right. There's a few. It could do with an. It just needs a bit of attention, really, like a little bit of a errata, maybe an FAQ.
Yeah. I think there's only 3 things I can think of in the whole game that are slightly out of whack, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think I was going to say something similar to James in that the core fundamentals of the game are spot on. There are some individual units that could use some tweaking or use some attention, and I think there are 1 or 2 wording areas that might be a little bit cleaner, right? Where there isn't a hard and fast rule about how to resolve something that just needs an FAQ or a slight errata to tweak up. But as you say, that comes with a little bit of attention from the designers, and it should be a simple enough fix.
Yeah, I think with all the releases for TOS that are on the horizon, I think they will be looking at.
I think that's
doing a tidy up of the rules and a.
Once Kirai and Sonia land, I suspect there'll be a few more people who'll be paying attention, and I think that's the right time for them to come in and give this a bit of love. And with the announcement that arrived today, with the new alternate Nakima box that doubles up as a storm siren.
Yeah.
There's you see a few more people definitely saying, "Hang on, let's take another look at this," right? Because the artwork for that looks phenomenal. So I may be lured into the hordes.
Something else just sprang to mind of what is good about TOS. It's just popped into my head. Even building your company, you're not like stuck picking a certain number of units. You can pick such varied companies by the time you've brought in other factions and so forth through the sort of what's the term?
Envoy lists.
The envoy lists, yeah. There's so many lists you can build. When I started playing, I was like, this is the list. These are the best units. This is the only list I can build. And then I was like, actually, no, I can go in a completely different direction with the same faction. And then I've got even more possibilities by the time I've envoyed as well.
Yes, the envoy system for anyone listening is really simple. It's basically you hire your main allegiance, for example, Abyssinia, and you say, okay, I want to take an envoy. Now, some of the envoys are a little bit more restrictive, like going into another full allegiance, like getting in the King's Empire, you need to bring a leader, another commander. Or you can envoy into the syndicates, which, for Abyssinia would be guild. And then you can just bring in whichever guild units you want. At the moment, that's just Thrace, but we see a few more about to land. And you can, as you say, you can just drag those in, or you can bring in Casa, and then you can bring in other King's Empire units, or whatever it might be. It's so flexible. And if they keep adding more allegiances, that's just going to come up with some super flexibility in terms of hiring.
I think it looks like they are, right? We've seen.
There's 2 more at least, isn't there?
3.
3? Oh. I look forward to the hype section later when I find out about another one.
Yeah. So, and then the last mechanic I just have to raise, because it's I've not seen it anywhere else. That's not to say it doesn't exist in another game, but the whole concept of your units going to glory, mechanically is amazing. Thematically, it's amazing. Your unit has done something great on the battlefield, and suddenly you flip the card over and they get better stats and new abilities. How cool is that conceptually? And on on the board. It's just, you're playing very much to sort of get certain units to glory as fast as you can, because it just adds so much power to some of those units. So yeah, I just love the idea there.
Yeah, no, I
How you
love
get
I
to
love it
glory.
as well. What's that?
Even how you get to glory, each allegiance's version of getting to glory is really thematic. The cult, they have to go mad, go insane to go to glory.
Yeah.
The King's Empire need to do something heroic and kill something.
Yeah, the
So
Gibbering
effectively,
Hordes eat their own friends. they eat each other to go to glory.
They've always been a bit weird.
Yeah, and the Abyssinia was this eureka, isn't it? They have like a clever moment, right?
Yeah, like an ultimately clever moment where they win by a certain margin, a big margin. Like, this is an overwhelmingly good idea to do something.
It's probably a good idea to sort of lead into, maybe a little bit more about each of these factions, right? Because I think that glory mechanic and, as you say, what they're trying to do probably gives you a good flavor around what they are. So in terms of factions, James, talk me through your choice.
Okay, so I'm an Abyssinian player because I'm clearly a power gamer. I suppose conceptually, if you know anything about 40k, we're a bit like the Space Marines. We're pretty good at stuff. We're pretty armored. We've got the tech, and we like to think we're the good guys. The reality is we're not really. We just think we are. So if you want to play Abyssinia, we've got big stompy bots running around. We've got a good mix of shooting units and melee units, and we've got some tech as well. We've got teleporting electrocutioners diving in. We've got motorbikes with machine guns. Abyssinia is like your high tech, sort of quite tough army. If you break them down a little bit, yeah, sure, they sort of dissolve into nothingness. But yeah, that's the flavour of Abyssinia. They're a high tech country from Africa, sort of staking their claim on the world, I suppose.
It's Wakanda, right? So
I think the fluff is that a breach opened up in Africa in the past.
yeah, there was an early breach, and they discovered soul
stones, didn't they?
Yeah. So they kept it secret. So they kind of they got lots of soul stone. That's why they have really highly advanced tech.
Yeah,
their Titan is a giant robot stomping around, so it's good.
Player-wise, you're right. They're sort of the elite faction with some big hard units to break through that just hold their ground.
I'd say that they're one of those. They're the faction that's sort of a bit of a jack of all trades as well. They can do a bit of everything.
They're a bit mobile. They've got a bit of firepower. They've got a bit of staying power.
And
but their main shtick is card draw, isn't it?
Yeah,
they do like a little bit of card draw. I'm not gonna lie. If you like card draw, come and play Abyssinia.
Yeah.
They're the easiest probably to get started. They're quite forgiving when you start because you have some extra cards and stuff.
Yeah.
But then they don't get that much better. You can obviously get better with all the factions, but they don't go up sort of exponentially like some of the other ones that might be described.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Luke, how about your choice?
My choice, Arran, was the same as your choice, which is the Cult of the Burning Man. And the reason I was drawn to these is the same reason I was drawn to Resurrectionists and Neverborn in Malifaux, which is they're just gribbly, monstery, zombie tentacle things, which is what I like. So play style, they are kind of they're a little bit of a glass cannon. They're very much a skirmishy faction. So they have a unique mechanic that no other faction has, which is portals, which you start with 3 or 4 of them on the board usually, and any cult units that are in base contact with portals can teleport to any other portal on the board. They can get around the whole board really quickly in a non-conventional way.
Yeah.
When they do this, they can get somewhere fast and they can hit for a lot of damage, but they can't really take it. They're a bit squishy. So one of the finesse plays of using cult is knowing when to go in and when to get out, and using their movement tricks to pull your units out of harm's way.
I completely echo that. They are incredibly satisfying to play when you've got that worked out. But you can overcommit to something and think, yeah, I've got this, and suddenly you get squished.
Oh yeah, done that many times. You've been like, yeah, this is great, and then you're like, oh no, fucked it. I'm all dead. Like everyone's dying. Cool.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm with you. I was drawn to the artwork, this sort of crazy madman leading his people, and there's this sort of flames everywhere, and as you say, gribbly tentacles and spikes, and fantastic models. So it's an awesome look, and the Adiadatas artwork I love. Just this crazy guy in his robes. But
I mean, to be honest, I was more gearing towards cult. I was also looking at the Gibbering Hordes and umming and ahhing a bit. And when I had my demo game with Tom, Rich had his demo game like the week before, and Tom said he was going to play Hordes. So I was like, oh, that's all right. That makes my decision for me. But yeah, it was the artwork. I always look at stuff, factions and stuff by what I'm going to enjoy painting the most, and yeah, it's usually gribbly monsters.
For me, it was the Doomseekers. I love the artwork for the Doomseekers. They just look so cool. Which is why I'm really happy there's a Doomseeker coming to Malifaux as well. So it does mean I'm going to have to reignite my Karai and do something with my Reaver crews. So just so I can put a Doomseeker onto the table on both games.
Oh, what's he called? Deacon Hill something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Doomseekers everywhere. Yeah, but in terms of playstyle, I think Cult are very much it's movement. It's all about the movement. There's a little bit of card draw. They can hit pretty hard if you use them the right way. They can fizzle a little bit, and there's a little bit of random mechanics on some of the units' damage tracks. But yeah, definitely a fun crew to play.
Yeah, they've got different. So you've got the commanders, which are Adiadatas, who's the one you get in the starter box, and his main shtick is using the portals. He's the kind of the portal master, and can pull other units like to him from across the board. But you've got another master called Fenton, who's kind of more about shaking tokens and about milling your deck. And he sort of couples really nicely with the Twisted Horrors. So they're for example, their sort of thing is they're kind of beaters, but they get extra activations if you've already gone through your deck once. And there's a few units in the Cult of the Burning Man that are really good for just burning through your deck.
Yeah, deck cycling.
Yeah. So that's like what we were saying earlier, is that within each faction and each company, you could build to do. It's not just like these are the best units, I'm going to take them. It's like, what do I want to do with this company? And yeah, just all the different ways of building. Yeah, and who you're playing against, for example.
Yeah. So,
if you're a new player, what would attract you to Cult out of interest? From a mechanics point of view, what sort of player is going to come and play Cult?
I think a player who likes finesse, who likes to know how to get the most out of their units. So it's about synergy, getting the whole company to work together. So if you're about that sort of unlocking the sum of the parts being greater than the individual components, then that's definitely a Cult thing. I'll harken this back to give my age away a little bit. I used to play like Dark Elves back in Warhammer Fantasy years ago when they were really shit, and they were all about movement. And the only time you could win a game is if you could use the movement absolutely perfectly. Now, Cult aren't at that end of the spectrum. They are a very powerful faction, but definitely if you're good with movement and about getting your units in the right place, then this is something that's going to appeal to you.
Yeah, I mean, you can play Cult and not be good at that and still have a good time. But if you want to get the absolute top end most out of them, yeah, the finesse, knowing the finesse movement tricks and timing everything right is key.
Yeah, I think that contrasts with the Abyssinia, right? Abyssinia are a little bit easier to play, get a lot out of them. You will still get better with Abyssinia as you go, but then it's more about really squeezing the efficiencies that Abyssinia's got. Whereas Cult, the first couple of games you play, you're probably going to cock up the order. You're probably going to leave things overexposed and get punished for it. But once you know what you're doing with Cult, you can be really hard to predict, and that means you can score things that your opponent just didn't see coming. And if you like tricks and surprises and things like that, then Cult is full of them.
Yeah.
Really high ceiling, it seems like. If you get good with Colt, you could get very good at TOS if you can really get a hold of those mechanics.
I think that's probably it, right? It definitely has that appeal to, like, can I really squeeze everything out of these guys and make them absolutely perfect? And I think there's so much flexibility that there's a lot to play with.
Yeah. I mean, it's all fun and games until someone stands on your portal.
Never done that.
But I think that there's another cool, I don't know if it's aesthetic meeting gameplay thing here. It's not just the portals on the board that you start with. There's a unit that is a stalking portal unit. They can move around. They walk into your fellow units, and then they teleport. The unit walked into gets teleported. Mechanically, that's cool, and thematically, that's cool, and the models are just amazing.
See, I know James is now thinking, I wonder what they actually do, because every time I've played him, he's shot them off the board before they've done anything.
It's my turn 1 bloodlust. I must kill something.
Yeah, they're easy to kill. They're low defense, so they're easy.
So useful.
They've got that massive bullseye on their head, haven't they? They're super useful and easy to kill. So
yeah,
number 1 target.
And you can do some crazy bullshit with them, which is just amazing. Yeah, teleporting, a friendly unit, multiple friendly units across the board, and having something, appear somewhere else, and there's a lot of surprises you can pull with them.
Yeah, and they're fantastic looking models as well.
Oh yeah.
So James, on the Earth side of the thing, there's another faction there, the King's.
There is. It's the British, the King's Empire. London is underwater and fighting off the Gibbering Hordes, and you have the King's Empire, which is a stalwart sort of British-style army in the 1900s. You've got your riflemen, grenadiers, you've got cavalry charging, and they have a giant robot that looks like something out of Transformers, which is quite cool. So I suppose they're a simpler faction to Abyssinia or to Cult, but they've got a nice bit of flavour to them. They feel like defending places. They're not the most mobile army, but if you want to get to an objective and hold it, it's kind of that company to do it. You set them up. It's a big gun line. You've got a few different tricks, plenty of range. Nothing is safe from them because of their sort of firepower. But with that, you have the downsides of a little bit less mobility and a little bit of sort of fragility once they get jumped on by the various armies of Gribblies. You've got.
Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say you've got 2 commanders that are very sort of different to some of the other commanders you see in the game. You've got a sniper, so Charles Edmonton, who sort of sits at the back and is there to pick off key targets, juicy targets. And then you've got Margaret Bell, who's, I suppose, an assassin that's teleporting all over the board to make those sort of precision cuts to back up your main volleys of firepower.
I think that it's that Margaret Bell hints at something else about King's Empire that's actually, people overlook at first glance. Because they say they are a gun line, but they are far more than just a gun line. I think if you get to the heart of what the King's Empire are, they are a control faction. They control movement through their gun lines, closing off avenues of attack. But they've got a lot of other infiltrators that attack the opponent's hand. You've got units that can move objectives, right? So there's lots of tricksy stuff that you probably miss the first time you glance through the units. You think, oh, these guys can shoot great. It's like, yeah, they can, but there's a lot more to them that people miss.
They give out pin tokens straight off the bat. It's built into all of their units. They're slowing units down.
Yep. Yeah. So, and I think it's that. It's a gun line, but it's a gun line that's using its gun line for a purpose. Right. And
it's hidden depths.
It's worth mentioning as well that the pinned tokens cancel out reinforcement tokens. So they're kind of stopping with their guns and their gun lines. They're stopping the opponent's forces from reinforcing as well.
Yeah, so more of that sort of indirect control coming up. So, actually, I think thematically you're right there. They have that sort of, clearly they are the British, but they've got that old sort of early 1900s infantry with a bit of cavalry. They've got some guys on horses running around, but look, we've got these huge big mortar cannons and these big stompy robots.
Yeah. I think that that's probably my favorite looking Titan in the game is the King's Hand. Just a giant robot.
Yeah, and the King's Hand has got other control elements as well, right? He's got an asset, which is effectively an upgrade, where he can send units back from glory, right? So more of that control coming through. So
yeah, I mean, having faced them, it's weird. Like the first few times I faced them, they were kind of just a hangback gun line, but then you play Andy, and they're doing all sorts of like shenanigans. So yeah, I think there's a lot more to them than just a gun line. It's just you need to think a little bit more outside the box. But
quite creative, don't you, with them? Because they seem like they're vanilla on the front, but if you really look at the stratagems and the units, there's some stuff that can be done there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've definitely had some surprises playing against them, where something's happened. I've been like, what the fuck, But
yeah, I think having a unit that can move an objective marker, and in some of the operations, the objective markers, their location, it dictates how much you can score from them.
Yeah,
to manipulate the potential scoring of the game is just huge. So
I think that's one of their stratagems, right? Isn't it?
I thought it was the infiltrators or the saboteurs or something.
Stratagem that can move it. I think the infiltrators can move it, and the intelligence core can create new strategy markers.
There you go.
Oh well.
So
yeah, so
they have full control over strategy markers. If you're on top of it, they can become a real control allegiance.
Yeah, and that's something none of the other factions have. That's uniquely theirs.
Yeah, they've also got hand destruction. I think it's the infiltrators that attack to force you to discard cards. And in a game where you don't get a full hand of cards automatically every turn, it's quite
more precious.
So casual glance, shooty, but actually there's a lot of depth to that crew, which goes back to the design philosophy. They had a very clear idea what they wanted to achieve with each faction, and it really does come through. And fluff wise, that makes sense, right? The guild are obviously all about intelligence and manipulation, but the whole idea is the British kicked the guild out and fought them at their own game, right? And they had their own spy network and they had their own way to get soul stones onto Earth without using the guild, right? So and that comes through in the design. It comes through the playstyle. Right, and then the fourth faction there, Luke, do you want to tell us about the Gibbering Hordes?
So the Gibbering Hordes are it's the other Malifaux side faction.
The bad guys.
Yeah, the bad guys. Although technically they're not bad guys because they're just their fluff is they were just swimming around in their ocean in Malifaux, and then so how the cult of the Burning Man happened was the Governor General of Malifaux tried to become a tyrant, fucked up, became a burning man and appeared in the sky above London. And when he did, all these portals opened up and lots of people in London mutated and went crazy, and that's why you got the cult of the Burning Man. Now, at the same time, the portals opened up all over the place, and some of them opened up under the sea in Malifaux. And through those portals, water poured into London, and also the Gibbering Hordes came through, and they are pretty much a faction of fishmen and gribbly underwater tentacly stuff. Playstyle, they are very much your kind of your horde faction. They have they have the ability to keep coming back. So like it's sort of not regenerating as such. It's supposed to sort of represent like just endless waves of them. They're primarily a melee faction. They're quite fast. They're sort of getting there quick and do melee damage, but they're also very squishy. A lot of them have low armor, so they're quite easy to kill.
Yeah, they're easy to kill individual models. Even fire teams go down quite quickly. But
Yeah.
as you say, another one comes back to replace it. And
Yeah.
How
there's
many
quite
you
a few-
kill?
Yeah, and there's quite a few ways for them to generate more reinforcement tokens out of like the normal mechanism, right? So that they can generate them through things they're doing anyway.
Yeah, they're very much an attrition faction. They don't tend to score very early in the game. They tend to score a lot later once the other side's been losing a lot of their troops and stuff. The Gibbering Hordes have as well, but they've kept coming back. And then by turn 5, usually they should be outnumbering the enemy, and that's when they can sort of overwhelm them and score the majority of their points. Yeah, it's all about attrition.
And they do have high movement, right? A lot of the units are very quick. Some of them are exceptionally quick.
Yeah.
And some of them can teleport, right? If they've got the right assets, they can teleport between tide pool markers.
Yeah, tide pools is one of their mechanics. So they create these tide pools, which are, from memory, difficult terrain.
It's difficult low, I think.
Which is fine. But then they have a commander called the Storm Siren who, when she flips to glory, all the tide pools on the board become hazardous, and then the other side, hazardous terrain is fucking brutal. She also has like a allure ability.
It's not just a lure ability. She has a 28-inch range lure ability. Or 24.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Nothing
sweet.
is safe.
It's got a very high stat as well, so it's really hard to resist. So yeah, she can lure you, and she's got triggers that can add movement to your movement as well. So you could be lured right across the board. But yeah, if she lures you into the tide pools, then you'll take damage. There's a lot of benefits that the hordes can get from the tide pools if they're in them. Yeah, it's a really fun faction to play, and like the other three, it's very, very different. Has its very own unique style.
Yeah, and I must say, I found they're an interesting one in that when I first looked at them, I was like, it's a big horde of fish, man. Yeah, not that interesting. And then playing against them, I was like, oh wow, they actually are really quite interesting, right? As you say, you've got the Storm Siren, who is a control commander, right? She's luring people, she's creating new tide pools in the way, she's blocking off, avenues of movement, creating hazardous terrain everywhere. And then you've got the sort of counter on the other side with the Frenzy, which is just it's just a commander on 3 bases, so a squad commander.
Yeah, it's a bunch of fish.
Bunch of sharks.
Yeah.
And who just eviscerates through a unit, does huge amounts of attacks, huge amounts of damage. And, a lot of their damage seems to be actually very commander-centric, which is quite counterintuitive from the cult, where the damage is very much coming from the squads and the units. So.
Yeah, and you go to glory by eating your own squads. So
Babies.
Yeah. You can lay eggs and eat the eggs, or you can just eat fire teams out of your squad or fire teams out of another squad. One of the sort of keys to playing the hordes is knowing when to stop doing that. It's like it's really easy to get carried away and eat, like, if you're doing that too much, like more than you can replenish with your reinforcing, then you can actually damage yourself quite badly.
I just love the thematics of that. You got this huge big alpha crawler, which is this massive titan leaning over, picking up a unity or Razzie and just swallowing them and sort of getting stronger. And the alpha crawler's got one of his assets is effectively he throws units, right? I don't think he actually throws them in the game, but like thematically his range attack is him tossing fish, right? So.
Yeah, because the model's got lots of little skulkers running all over him. So yeah, it's supposed to represent him just pulling skulkers off of himself and throwing them at people. It's really cool.
No care about the individual units making up the company. It's all about the everyone as a whole having this big tide that destroys everyone in front of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was quite shocked at how quick they are when I was playing, because as a cold player, I'm used to being much faster than anyone else, and I did feel that I didn't quite have as huge a movement advantage when I played against the Horde. So it is something to bear in mind. They are quick.
Yeah, especially the Arazi, who are like, I think they move 10 or 11 inches. But also, if one of their units dies, which they will because they're squishy, they get to move their full movement. So yeah, if the Arazi can for example, they can eat their own one of their own fire teams. Because of that, they can then all move like 10 inches across the board, and then they can all move another. If they take a rush, another like 20 inches across the board. So yeah, they can literally be in the opponent's deployment zone like that.
Yeah, and as you say, they're quite squishy, and then you got this counter in the things like the whelks, which are big, shells. I don't know, like big. I suppose it's like a whelk, right? It's big shellfish creature, sort of.
Really heavily armored, really hard to remove. They also stop other units around them getting pin tokens.
Yeah, so thematically, everyone's hiding behind the shells, right?
Yeah.
Good fun faction. And yeah, huge amounts of damage. I remember playing against Reese, which is, Reese always comes up with this crazy bullshit. And he had sort of teleporting frenzy that were running wild through my units, just destroying things left, right, and center, which I was quite prepared for at the time. And this just gave me a reminder of just the scale of the game, right? You're playing on a 6x4 board. Very much, you come from Malifaux thinking, okay, 12 inches is a reasonable attack distance. 14 is pretty good, and 24 inch. The ranges in the game are just much bigger. There's a lot less restrictions on that. So, Adiodatus has abilities where he just has to be able to see something. And as I said, the Storm Siren has incredibly long lures. It was quite a I enjoyed it stepping in from Malifaux into Tierra. Just sort of the scale of everything is just much bigger.
Yeah, what's the Abyssinian railgunner's range, James?
It's a good 36 inches once it's charged up, I think.
Okay, yeah.
It's not just 36 inches. It's charged up 36 inches stat 12.
Yeah, you're definitely hitting.
Yeah, and that's probably something that coming from the other game, right? Just this stat 7 in Malifaux is a very high stat. There's a lot more high stats in this game. Cool.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning it's 6x4 for 2 commander. But if you're playing 1 commander or 1 commander plus 10 script, then it's 4x4.
Which feels a lot more cramped. But
yeah, I think the other side at its best is a 2 commander game, like the 6x4. Just everything feels like really smooth and right there. Like the 4x4 1 commander games, they're really good for like quick games or demos and stuff like that. But they're just, some of the abilities just don't really gel that well with a 4x4 board, I think.
Yeah, a cult, you get too many portals in play. If you've got the tide pools as well, there's a lot of those everywhere. So you're right on top of each other. And as 36-inch range shooting, you feel like you're being shot at before you even out the gates. So those are the 4 big factions, right? There's the 2 syndicates, which we don't yet have full amounts for. We've just got Bin for the court, and we've got Samantha Thrace for the guild. But we've got the new starter set just around the corner, where we're going to see those expanding a little bit. So we'll have a commander for each of those.
And they are both characters that Malifaux players will recognise. You have Karai representing the Court of Two, and Sonia Crid representing the Guild.
It's continuing to burn everything.
Yeah, we once those are out and we've got like a bit more detail, we could probably come back and revisit those in a lot more depth. If I was a new player coming in and saying, hang on, I'm interested in TOS, you've given me the summary, I got a feel for these different factions. What do I need to get started?
It's really easy. You can pretty much just buy one box and start. Each faction has what are they called? Are they called starter boxes?
Allegiance boxes.
Allegiance boxes. That's it. Each faction has an allegiance box, and in that you get one commander and enough units to play a one commander game. You also get all the tactics, all the tokens you need. I think you get a fate deck and a tape measure as well.
You do, yeah.
So yeah, like literally, you just need to buy. If you want to start playing or just give it a try, you just need to buy one of those boxes, and you can play straight up.
You can blue tack your models to your base, and literally, off you go.
Yeah, they're pre-built as well, so you don't even have to build them. But yeah,
It's a good game as well, can't you? It's a good one commander game straight out of the box.
Yeah, and I think like everything you get in your models you get in your starter boxes, like for each faction, you're going to use continually, even as you grow your faction and buy other stuff. Like, for example, like the cult, I bought the Cult of the Burning Man. You get Adiadatus. You get the Stalking Portals, which you'll pretty much always use. I played one game without them. It was horrible. Don't ever do that. And you get 2 units of Warped, which are the kind of the cult's premier beaters, I'd say. They're like
the big shock troops, right?
Yeah. And I think in Abyssinia it's the same. You get the Mahouse Safari, who are like their sort of elite troops.
Reliable unit. But then they're not elite compared to the others, but they're reliably good at everything. They don't really have a weakness. So you can always fit them into a bigger Abyssinian company.
Yeah. I think King's Empire, you get the Royal Rifle Corps, which are just amazing, and you get infiltrators as well. So yeah, like if you want to start playing, just buy one of those boxes, and you are good to go.
And then next off, I'd probably pick up another commander, and then add units to test.
Yeah, you can pick up 2 units and another commander, and you're almost at the sort of the 50-point mark.
Yeah, I think trying to think. It's been a while. Like, I'm trying to think what. So I bought the starter box, and I bought Fenton, who's the second cult commander, and then ECB Black Ops because they're just cool as fuck. And then I think I got a Rhino, and I was good to play 2 commanders then.
That sounds about right for that.
Yeah. So yeah, you really don't need to spend that much to be doing 2 commander games.
Yeah, and I suppose right now, well, in later this month, right? People, and when it lands beyond Gen Con, people could pick up an Allegiance plus the Karai Sonya starter box, and you're probably pretty close to getting towards a 2 commander, almost at that level, right?
So is if with the new starter box that's coming out, it's Guild and Court of Two mixed.
Yep.
And you could, if you want, when that's out, if you wanted to give TOS a try, you could just buy that with a friend. Split it down the middle, and you're good to give it a try with just that.
Yeah, I think if you were
Obviously
playing,
good in Malifaux.
yeah, they are. Yeah. I think some of them are bloody good in Malifaux. I think if you were playing Kirai in that one, you probably want a way, and we don't know how they're going to do it yet, whether you can get the Enslaved Spirits or any of those separately as well, because she's not summoning if you've just got the starter set. She needs a little bit more. But if you took her as a top up to a cult or a Hordes unit, where you're taking probably more of the Horde or more of the cult, and then you're just having Karai and Bin, and then you're summoning what she wants, then yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then we've just been coming out of this COVID lockdown, not so lockdown, let's get locked down again process. How have you guys been getting your TOS fix thus far?
It has a module on Vassal, the same as Malifaux, although it's actually a little bit better than the Malifaux module, I would say.
The tokens cancel each other out and stuff like that. It's quite nice.
Yeah, and if you want a pin token, you press Control P, and reinforcements is Control R, as opposed to Malifaux, where poison is W and burning is I can't even remember, Q or something.
Control Shift, Control W, and all these different buttons. Just like, no, Control P for pinned.
Yeah. Sensible shortcut keys are really good. For me, the thing that stands out for me is there's a reference window you can open and keep to the side, like you do with your cards. And if you click any model or asset on the board, it brings up the card.
Yeah.
There you are, right in front of you. It's fantastic. It makes it super easy to play. I don't need to be screwing around with my mobile phone trying to open the app and read cards. It's in front of me. So
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Cards why they're doing their stuff.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's look like while the opponent's doing his go, you can be looking at their cards and
the way I play, I have my own real proper cards in front of me on my table. So I know that there's my Diodatus card, I can read it. But then when my opponent's doing when James is doing something crazy with the electrocutioners and I'm confused about what bullshit they're doing, I just click on the electrocutioner card and then I've got both cards in front of me. Sort of reference on the screen plus my own card. It just makes it far easier to sort of play the game, right?
Well, during it would do, but during lockdown and playing TOS on Vassal, my prescription in my glasses changed, so I had the wrong glasses and I couldn't really see the TOS cards because they were quite small. So I printed up large versions on my printer of all the cards, but I printed them a little bit too big. So every time I was playing the other side, I ended up with all these A4 printouts like scattered across my desk, and every time I was trying to find something, it just looked like a bomb had gone off in an office. It was pretty dumb.
so don't copy Luke. It's probably good advice for many things in life, actually.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting because as a group, we're all based in London, right? And we started playing this as a group in the sort of heart of lockdown, right? In November, and because I don't know which one of you it was. You said there's all these discounts available on TOS. Let's go grab some. And within a couple of hours, our whole gaming group would grab factions, and everyone's sitting there, assembling and painting in the background. But actually, playtime, we've got 100% Vassal at the moment. So.
Yeah, I think bar me and Tom, none of you have actually played on the table yet, have you?
I have not physically played it on the table. I've only played at games of Vassal. So.
That's the thing.
We've managed to get two leagues in, though, haven't we?
We have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good fun. We did a league in, it was earlier this year, around about April time. We did one for the local London lot, and we had 12 of us turn up. Played it over sort of 3 or 4 weeks, just to Swiss style league, which is fantastic to see the turnout for that. And I said that when I sort of was posting those on the various Facebook places, I had a couple of people sort of saying, is this only for the UK? And I was like, well, it's only for the UK and mostly London. We let a couple of people from the north join as well, but there was enough interest that I said, let's do this more. And we did one, a bit more global. We had people from Poland, Denmark, Australia, US, UK, right, all playing. So that was fantastic. So there's actually quite a good little community, cross borders, where people are regularly talking about the game, and there's there's the Discord chat. So there's quite a good community of guys desperate to get new models, absolutely desperate. So every time Wyrd announces anything new TOS, the conversations reignite almost instantly. So
yeah.
It's quite good to see the second tournament as well. We had a good spread of factions at the end, the final placements, which sort of showed the game was quite well balanced.
Yeah, what it was Abyssinia first. You were running King's Empire for that one. You came.
I was King's Empire second. I think Ollie, was it maybe Ollie third with Colt?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think Colt 3, and then the Hordes picked up 4. So we had one of each in the top 4. And I think faction-wise for both the leagues we ran, it was almost equal across them. I think it might have been a slight over on Abyssinia and under on King's Empire for one of them. But other than that, I think it was almost identical across the factions. So there's a good spread people are excited about all 4 factions. There's no duds there, right? People.
Yeah, definitely.
Luke and I are doing joining a gathering of TOS players this Saturday at Darksphere. So we will actually be able to put physical toys on the table.
Yeah,
To be missing that.
I think is there 6 of us playing?
I think it's 5 or 6. I can't remember where the numbers are finally landing. Typically, unfortunately, people are still on holiday and away out of town. So I think when we do the next month, I think we'll get quite a few more people turn up.
Oh yeah. There was a whole bunch of people who wanted to come but couldn't because of other commitments. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. This week I've been trying to finish painting my Doomseekers and failing. So
you just finished the 3.
I've finished 3 of the 9. Yeah.
I managed to get.
Oh, crikey!
I got the skin down base color, no shading or anything on my 1 unit of Warped this morning. I did most of the bin yesterday, so yeah, I will be able to put down a 1 commander crew where every single model has at least some paint on it. They will not be finished, but they will all have at least some level of paint on them. So.
Yeah, well, I've got Friday off, so I'm going to see. I'll be back at home then as well, so I have my airbrush, so I'll see what I can get done.
And you, James, have you got some more paint?
I've managed to do not much more. I've done the 18 Mehel Sephiri. I've done my Vesovo Cavalry, and I've done a few of the base colours for my commanders, but I'm going to do the Electrocutioners next. That's my plan, to try and get them done tomorrow, or at least get them started.
Yeah, one of the scariest units in the game. Yeah.
So are you still painting straight out the pot, or you've discovered?
Well, you know me, I like to speed the process up, so straight out of the pot. And my brush hasn't actually got any bristles left, but that just means I get a consistent sort of application.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
You want me to do Zenithal shading next? We'll see. We'll see.
I just want you to
ordered some white spray paint.
I just want you to water down your paints. That's all, man.
I think they really need it. They're getting a bit sludgy where I leave the pots open all day.
He posts pictures on our WhatsApp group of him painting straight out of the pot just to upset me.
Don't blame him.
I'm sorry.
Looking ahead, right? We've got a bunch of people eager to get games on the table, at least in a local group. We've got the starter set around the corner. Plenty of people I've seen a lot more people sort of saying, "Well, hang on, let's have a look at this." It's Karai, it's Sonya. I like them. I'm getting all the stuff up for TOS. Hopefully that means we'll get a few more people interested in it. At least trying the game. And I've got a few more requests from people to give them an introduction, talk me through the game, play through on Vassal.
Oh, cool.
A couple more people interested, just sort of talk me through, show them. Unfortunately, none of them are in this country, so they're all people in overseas. But definitely there's a lot of appetite and people are desperate to get games. So I think future's looking really exciting.
I think what Wyrd are doing is really clever with the what they're doing with the sort of TOS Malifaux crossovers, because obviously the TOS starter box has Karai and Sonya and all the TOS units in it, but they're also coming with Malifaux cards so they can be used in Malifaux. So I think a lot of people, plus all the enslaved spirits and the Guisin, which come in the box, can also be used in Malifaux. So I think there'll be people who play Malifaux just buying that box for them.
Everyone I know who plays Malifaux, who plays one of those 2 masters, is going to buy that box.
Yeah. I mean, if I didn't play TOS, I would be buying that box just for the Karai stuff. But
exactly right, and all of the Karai stuff and all of the guild stuff is versatile, right? So it's not just the Karai and Sonya players. It's any Reza or guild player who's potentially going to pick that up.
So. Yeah, any Reza player is going to want those Guisin Vengeance too.
I think the Slave Spirits as well are really good for 3 points for significant model. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really because a lot of people are going to buy this, and then they'll be like, well, I actually have the models now to play a one commander game of the other side, so I may as well give it a go.
I think it's just shy of one commander. I think it's one commander if you add Thrace and Ben
Oh, okay.
on it, and the assets that they get. But yeah, but that's an easy add anyway, because yet again, those are good models for people playing Malifaux too. So,
And then as we mentioned earlier, they previewed today Nekima, or Nekima, however you want to pronounce it. The
old Storm Siren.
yeah, who's good? Yeah, an old Storm Siren. I think this is going to be something we'll see a lot more of in the future, like models being released with a Malifaux card and a TOS card.
Yeah. I saw someone in one of the various posts on one of the discussions sort of saying, well, can we at least make Charles Edmonton model an alternative for English Ivan, right? They both have a big gun, so maybe there'll be some alt for that down the line. It's an easy one, right? And
Ivan doesn't have a gun.
Is it not Ivan? The other one. I don't play the Explorers. Who's the guy?
Cooper.
There you go.
What was this talk about other factions? I've only seen a couple of pictures that you put up.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we've got, as I said, we've got the guild and the court as the sort of syndicate factions, which may or may not get a second commander. We just don't know, I think. But then we have seen some artwork that was released for the actually in the back of the book, the hardcore the hardback book, there is a coming page or something looking forward to, where you can see some artwork for the Three Kingdoms, so not 10 Thunders but the actual Three Kingdoms as the one. And then there's the Oni faction. What are they called? Kimon.
Yeah.
Kimon, yeah. And so there's some of the artwork for the Kimon was released a few years ago for the Through the Breach, and it had artwork for Through the Breach. It had the logo for the Through the Breach and TOS, and there's a bunch of the sort of crazy Oni stuff coming out from that. And then a few years back, for one of the big events that Wyrd ran, there was some global competition, and whoever won the competition could choose the next faction for TOS, and it was the Nightmare faction. So I think they call it the Sandman or something. So something to do with the Dreamer. And I think the idea is that the Kimon would be a Malifaux faction, the Three Kingdoms would be an Earth faction, and the Sandman was supposed to be one that either Malifaux or Earth could hire from. So a little bit more of a crossover faction, which then really opens the doors on, hiring options and flexibility and stuff like that. The thing is, we've seen absolutely nothing about them other than they were announced as the winners of the faction, and that's it. They're coming. But given that it's got something to do with the Dreamer, I can see millions of players sort of saying, "Ooh, Dreamer, cool. What's that? Let's go have a look." Right? And we don't know if they're going to bring other masters in. I don't think they're going to get too many masters from Malifaux into that.
I mean, it would make a lot of sense to have the Dreamer connected to TOS, because, I mean, he is actually Earthside, isn't he? He's kind of Earthside, and like the version of him that's in Malifaux is his kind of dream
version. You're right. Yeah.
Dream version. So yeah, his I remember. I don't know if did I imagine this, but his parents were killed in the Burning Man thing.
They were.
Yeah, I think he's on his own now, isn't he? In London, a bit isolated with gibbering hordes all around him
and crazy gods. So
yeah.
So yeah, so there's loads of things that we could do, right? Or they could do there, and how that translates to gameplay, and cool models and things like that. Yeah, I'm super excited to see what that. And they have promised us. I don't know when they showed the rules for the Gwyson and enslaved spirits. If anyone who read that Waldo's Weekly all the way to the bottom, right at the bottom, they said, look, there is more TOS coming this year, or more announcements around TOS coming later this year. So there's definitely stuff like in the wings. I think they just want to get all of the sort of Malifaux, old titles and stuff out there in the public domain, get people talking about that, let that have its sort of simmering moment, and then once that's calmed a little bit, I think they might stop pumping some of the TOS stuff. So, but having the new Storm Siren is fantastic. So.
Yeah, when is the starter box coming? Was that November or was it October?
November. I think Thrace and Bin are October.
Right.
And then the starter is November. So which then fits in. Okay, well, let's do something. So presumably somewhere around that time period, we'll start seeing. Okay, here's whatever else they've got, right? And in the book, there's artwork for other stuff, that we've seen, so that may translate into, other models and things like that, So
I need to see it really get over the next few months.
Yeah, but I think now's the time for people are going to be buying Sonya and Karai at Gen Con sales and advance orders and sort of putting these things together and experimenting with them. So, on the back of that, on our local front, we're going to be running more sort of day events, probably mini tournaments. We'll see how that translates to maybe something bigger. And I'll probably run another Vassal League, online for people to play. For those who don't have a big enough scene locally, or people who just want to get more TOS games in, which is probably us.
Yep. Well, yeah, I'm definitely up for it. Vassal TOS League.
Yeah, I put a sort of teaser up in one of the Discord chats, and I had 2 or 3 people put their hands up who weren't in one of the last ones. There's definitely a lot of people excited to get a game in. So, looking at the starter box, from a TOS, not you're not the Gweiss and craziness that goes into reses, but just from a TOS perspective, which of those models are you most excited to put into your crews?
Karai, I think the new Karai model looks fantastic.
Yeah, Karai and Akirio, I cannot wait to put her in. So
beautiful.
There's one of the guild mages who looks really fucking cool. It's like the one with the grey hair and the long beard.
Oh, yeah, I think I know what you mean. Yeah, I thought he was a Doomseeker. He's a guild mage. I suspect there's some corruption taking place there.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm splitting it with James, so I won't be.
All guns for me.
I've still got to try and convince James to let me have all the shaken tokens. He told me to fuck off on the chat, so.
Never have enough shaken tokens as a cult player. So.
No.
This is true.
Although I did discover if you're playing Bin, by the time you're hitting sort of turn 3, 4, 5, you're probably running out of reinforcement tokens as well. So.
Oh yeah, because if he's the only court of 2 on the board, every time something dies, he gets a reinforcement token.
Yeah. He's got this little stack of tokens that's going to get bigger than he is. So.
Yeah. I think on Vassal you can only go up to 9, so I always just leave it there. Just go, yeah, fine.
You stop caring after a while. It's like, I've got enough. I can't do anything with them. Well, once you add Karai to the list and you can start summoning, then they actually become a lot more useful. So.
Unless you're playing Andy and then he hits Bin with a remove all your tokens thing. So he removed all my reinforcement tokens, then flipped me from Glory. So I was like, that's just not cool.
Is that the Titan that removes all the tokens?
Is the Titan that flipped me from Glory? I think it might have been the Titan that did that as well.
Yeah, the only time I've lost Bin in a game was Andy with the Titan. So
I've lost Bin most games I've played him, but that's because I play him really badly.
I do like to try and kill Bin whenever I see him on the table.
Yeah, I think it's been James that's killed him every time. So
there you go.
I've yet to lose a game with Abyssinia. I may never use them again.
I held you to the line and then I cocked it up at the end. So
Yep.
I kicked myself when I realized that you could with Prince Onathi you could push your units, and I didn't realize that. Oh bollocks, you're out of range. No, you're not. You're in range. Shit. Can get to that marker.
I mean, actually, like going back to what we were saying about what you need to get started in TOS, like you can come and have a demo game without actually spending anything. Like you can come on to, if you got get the Vassal module and come on and ask for a demo.
Yeah.
So
It doesn't take long to pick it up, does it?
yeah, I bought the Cult of the Burning Man stuff and played that. But when lockdown happened, I decided to try out the Gibbering Hordes and played them for a while. So yeah, that's the great thing about Vassal is you can give it all a go. If anyone is listening, just get in contact with Arran on Discord or I don't know. How do you contact you?
Yeah, probably Discord, Metalhead on Discord. If you go into either the Play Wyrd Discord section on TOS, I'm always there. Or there's the TOS Discord. I'm there as well regularly. So post something there. I'm about happy to give you guys a game.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a really good game. And yeah, basically that's how I got into it. Because I like I said, I missed the Kickstarter, and Tom, our local henchman in London, offered me a demo of TOS, and I was like, I don't know, I'm kind of a bit busy at the moment. Like I don't really have time. I was like, oh, do you know what? I'll just have a demo. So yeah, we just did he gave me a quick one commander demo down at our local gaming store, and that was it. I was like, this game is awesome. I was hooked. So
maybe just to circle back, a couple of parting thoughts on TOS, right? Just to reinforce that, as a game, right? From my perspective, and you guys can chip in. It's taken some of the unique selling factors of Malifaux, the card mechanic, crazy rules, amazing fluff, and it's just sort of distilled that into probably a cleaner basic rule set at its core, but still the same janky craziness in each individual faction with some rules and mechanics that really bring to life the world on the board with the glory and your tough resources that in the tactics tokens to play with.
yeah, I think if you like Malifaux and you love the way that game works and the mechanics of that game, you should at least give this one a go, because it's got all that stuff, and it's just a different version. It's just a different
and your big, huge, crazy models fit on their bases and look super impressive on the board.
Yeah. When you get a nice 6x4 board with good terrain on it, and two commander companies on that board, it just looks fantastic.
Anything from you, James?
Taken all the good stuff from Malifaux, distilled it down into its own little spirit, and then added a mixer all of its own to create a new game with all of the good points and some new ones.
Closing time. You don't have to go home, but the regulars should probably go and sleep it off. We'll be back soon, and I hope you can join us again. In the meantime, you can contact us on Twitter at Brewy's Table, or email on thebrewmasterstable@gmail.com. Please do play heedlessly, chat brazenly, but drink responsibly.